So we bought an apartment in Japan. I know many of you are probably like, wait, what about Hawaii? Are you in Japan permanently again? The answer is no, I'm still based in Hawaii, but as you saw in my last video, I started a Japan-related company. My wife is Japanese, and I've said before that I wanted to be back as much as possible, so this is a step in that direction. So this was one of the biggest decisions I've ever made in my life, and it was also one of the most lengthy processes that I've ever been a part of. So I'm not going to go into all the details or anything, and quite frankly, I don't remember everything that happened throughout this process because it was just absolutely insane. Instead, I'm just going to condense the entire apartment hunting process down for you in this video and talk about what our thought process was and show you some of the places that we took a look at. So since I'm not based here and because we're not going to be here for 365 days a year, we decided to prioritize location a lot more than anything else, especially size of the apartment itself. And so we began the process of looking for places online. This was actually why I was in Tokyo for quite a while earlier this year. So prices in Tokyo vary quite a bit depending on the location. Like if you look at this map, it's pretty easy to see which areas are more expensive on average. Red dots are places about $1 million and up, and the blue dots are on the low hundreds of thousands of dollars. The wards that are known to be more on the high end are the ones with more brightly colored dots. So places like Minato, Shibuya, Meguro, Setagaya, and so on. So when we were living in Tokyo, we started to go to a certain area more and more frequently because it was an overall great area and it wasn't too far from where we lived in Kyoto. This became one of the hotspots for locals as well as Korean celebrities who are in the know. This area is great because it is pretty close to Shibuya and Harajuku. It's right next to Yoyogi Park. It has this kind of quaint vibe, but it's also right in the city. This area is called Tomigaya, and it is kind of like our ideal place that we wanted to get a place in. So we began looking in this area. Now the problem is because it's so desirable, there's not a lot of places that open up, or there aren't places that fit our budget because of course it's expensive and competition is really high. So overall, we looked at 5 different apartments. Our budget was between 35 to 45 million Japanese yen. At the time, it was, I think, $325 to $400,000 US. Now, you can't get a whole lot for that amount in this area because it's in Shibuya Ward and the access on the trains are quite good. In that area for this price, we're hoping to get maybe a small 1-bedroom apartment or possibly an older apartment. But if we were to go outside of this area and into one of the wards with more green and blue dots, for example, or outside of the main 23 wards of Tokyo, we could probably get a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment in a high-rise building. And if we were to go outside of Tokyo completely and in the countryside or something like the area I used to live in, Fukuoka, you could get a 2-story house for the same amount of money. But again, location first, that was our priority because as some of you might know, property values in Japan on average tend to decrease over time, which is why you may come across those articles and Instagram posts about getting houses for super cheap in Japan. Obviously, we wanted to avoid that as much as possible. The first apartment was a 1 LDK or 1 bedroom with a living dining kitchen. It was about 37.84 square meters or 407.3 square feet. Was on the 2nd floor, built in 1997, and went for about 54.8 million yen. So I was used to living in a bigger space, so immediately it felt a little bit small, possibly due to how it was furnished though and how the layout was set. But it was pretty nicely renovated. The bedroom felt a bit small especially, but there was, nice kitchen space. It had a dishwasher, which was great, and overall good lighting and a small little balcony. And they said that there weren't going to be any tall buildings built blocking the view or anything because it was now against the building code in the area. Just down the street was apartment number 2. The second apartment was also a 1 LDK. It was 37.03 square meters or about 399 square feet. It's on the 3rd floor, built in 1999, and was about 49.8 million yen. So right when I entered, it was kind of dark and felt a little bit cramped in the hallway. It wasn't renovated, so immediately if we were to get this place, we knew that we would have to renovate everything because it looked really dated. The bedroom felt a little bigger than the first apartment. I especially liked that the windows jetted out because it gave a sense of having a little bit more space, and the lighting was really good. The apartment faced main streets and kind of more local area, so there's unobstructed views. The balcony was also decently sized, bigger than the previous apartment. I didn't really care for how the bathroom opened up into the living room though, but I guess it would be something that I would have to get used to. Our third and final apartment that we looked on this day was in the Kitasando and Sendagaya area, which is near Harajuku on the northeast side. It was with a different realtor from a different agency because in Japan you have the flexibility to work with whoever you want and you don't have to stay with the same person. So there's a lot more freedom when it comes to house hunting. It was also a 1 LDK, 43.74 square meters or about 471 square feet. It was on the 8th floor. The building was a little bit older, built in 1970, and it went for about 49.9 million yen. So the halls in the building made it feel even older. The apartment itself was really nicely renovated. I liked the bathroom sink, the kitchen. It looked pretty nice. I also liked that the bathroom and everything was quite separated from the living room. The sliding doors to the balcony were kind of low because it's an old building, and I think because of the renovations, it became like this, which is something that I didn't really care for. The bedroom was a bit weird. I would have loved it if it was my office or something because there's a nice little desk area, but there is a pillar that was right in the middle of the room that couldn't be moved. So the bed space was really narrow and it would basically block the walk-in closet. The next day, we saw an apartment number 4 with yet another agent. Now, this fourth apartment was also a 1 LDK. It was 41.79 square meters or about 450 square feet, and it was on the 7th floor. The building was even older. It was built in 1968, and this apartment went for 44.99 million yen. The walkway from the elevator to the apartment itself was open and slightly slanted out, so it was kind of scary. Going into the apartment, it was kind of hard to tell what it would be like because it was going through renovations. My guess is that it felt bigger than it would actually feel like once the renovations were done and the walls were closed up. So the bedroom was a little small, but the closet size was supposedly supposed to be pretty big. They call it a walk-in closet. I'm not sure how much you can walk in, but decently sized. Now, because we couldn't really get a feel for how this apartment would actually look like when it was finished, the realtor took us to another apartment that they just renovated. And this apartment that we looked at would be renovated in the same way. So the agent here knew of another place nearby, so we took a walk and take a look at that apartment too. So this one was a 2DK or 2-room with dining and kitchen. It was about 43 square meters or 463 square feet. It is on the 2nd floor and for about the same price as apartment number 4. So let's just say 44.99 million yen. This apartment was even earlier into the construction. It actually felt more spacious, but then again, once the walls were put in and the doors were installed, it would probably be more cramped feeling. The layout was a little bit odd. The kitchen and dining area was in the middle of the 2 rooms. And there was supposed to be a walk-in closet, but the bedroom seemed really small. Right now, the kitchen had a window with light to come in, but it looked like the refrigerator would have to be placed right in front of that window. So it would block the natural light coming in, and the place already seemed kind of dim. Overall, this building seemed more like an office building than an apartment. And then it was right across of a school, so it wouldn't really feel private. There'd probably be a bunch of kids around, and it might get pretty loud. So a few things about earthquakes in Japan because they are a reality. So we learned that buildings that were built in Tokyo before 1981 were supposed to be able to withstand a Japanese scale Shindo 5 earthquake. But after 1981, the buildings that were built were supposed to be able to withstand a Shindo 6 or 7. The Shindo measurement is Japanese, and it measures the intensity of the earthquake that you feel. So the buildings that were built before 1981 and on a main street were prioritized for retrofitting by the government here. This is just for reasons such as in case a big earthquake happens, emergency vehicles would be able to pass through the main street with as little problems as possible. The thing is, though, that not all of these buildings have done it yet. So there is a chance that if the government comes knocking on your door, the residents of that building will have to fork up a bunch of money so that the building can get retrofitted. So for example, that third apartment that we looked at was on a main street built before 1981 and had not been retrofitted yet. And there's a chance that the government will kind of overlook and not come knocking, but there is also the chance, of course, that they do. And in that case, we would be having to pay some money for the retrofitting. So out of the apartments that we looked at, only the first two were built after 1981. So potentially they would have the least amount of issues arising in the future regarding earthquakes and retrofitting. The first apartment was renovated relatively well. It was closer to the Yoyogi Uehara area, which is the neighboring area and a highly desirable area in Tokyo. But the thing was that it was on a hill, and then it was, the layout was a little bit funky, and it was the most expensive apartment out of the ones that we took a look at. So considering that and considering everything else, we decided to push for apartment number 2. So we called up the agents and said that we were interested, and we went down to their office to have a meeting. They're the Nomura Group, so they're a pretty big company. Now, during this time, the apartment was still being shown, and it was actually supposed to be shown, I think, that day or the next day. So that, and then they were told that they had an offer that was going to come through. So we had to make an offer right there. The way that it works is kind of like first come, first serve, and whoever bids the highest. So we just put in for the asking price. We debated whether or not to kind of offer lower, but just based on the area and the demand, we decided to just give or offer the full amount that was being requested. And luckily for us, the seller decided to agree on it. Now, apparently the other person that was going to make that offer pretty immediately, they've been looking for an apartment in this area for over 7 years and have not successfully gotten a place. So I do feel a little bit bad, but the agent said that that's just how it goes around this area. And we're lucky to not only find a place, but find a place that fit our budget and that we thought was good enough for us to buy. Every once in a while I'll go and look online to see if anything opens up that would be a match in that area, and so far nothing has come up. So I think we're pretty lucky to find this match. Now, everything that happened after this agreement to buy and sell, that's all the tedious part that took a long time. I don't remember enough details because it was just so much, and I was just kind of like doing whatever I had to do. I wouldn't have been able to do all of this without my wife. She helped a lot. But yeah, at the end of the day, everything worked out. So I guess it's good. And from now on, the next phase is to finish up renovations to the apartment, which is why we came back to Tokyo to kind of do. We're not going to do the entire apartment, but just some things first. I'll be making a video showing some of that, what it's like to go through the renovation process in Tokyo. So stick around later if you want to see more of that. And because we're not going to be in Tokyo for every day of the year, we are planning to open up this apartment to our extended family and friends circle. If they want to stay in Tokyo for like a week or something like that, or longer, just to get a feel for what it's like to actually live in Tokyo in an apartment. But yeah, more on that later as well. If you like this video and haven't seen them yet, I made a couple other videos before about apartments that I lived in Tokyo, so go check them out if you're interested in that. Otherwise, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment if you have something to say about this. But otherwise, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.